The ocean is an incredible place. Let's keep it that way. Join us as we hunt for sustainable seafood. Your seafood choices matter for the future of ocean health. Hey, I'm Sarah Curry from Soraya Films. In this episode, I'm visiting Aaron and the team at Two Dock Shellfish in South Tampa Bay. Clams have been called the perfect protein. Let's find out why. We're going from tide to table. From the harvest through processing, we'll see what it takes to get clams on your plate.
I can tell you that a lot of the clam farming industry and the shellfish farming industry in general really took off in the state of Florida after they banned the gill nets for the mullet industry.
Ready to go?
A lot of folks back then were gill netting and making a living doing it, and sort of through no fault of their own, they were left without a livelihood. And so what the state did was retrain a lot of these fishers. They taught them how to produce clams. They got them 2-acre, 4-acre leases, and they let them go to work as farmers rather than fishers. They had the gear, they had the boats, and they had the basic maritime knowledge to sort of really turn the screws on that industry, and it's just gone from there. When you go to a restaurant and you order clam strips, those are generally like wild harvested ocean clams or surf clams. But when you go to a restaurant and you get clams on the half shell or you have clams in your pasta dish, those are hard clams, mercenaria, the ones like we farm and that are overwhelmingly farmed. These are young clams. They're 3-4 weeks old. They're about 750 microns to 1 millimeter. These are the ones that came in yesterday. They were hatched in our hatchery in Fort Pierce. They're free swimming for a week or two, little free swimming larval organisms, and they set. They form a shell and a foot and they go to the bottom and they become clams. We grow the algae that we feed them in the hatchery, but as they grow, they start to outstrip our ability to produce algae.
In order to keep up with the hungry clams, Aaron uses a system of pumps and passive upwelling to bring in unfiltered water directly from the bay. The water passes over the clams and they siphon out the algae to eat. When the water leaves the nursery, it's pumped back into the bay cleaner than when it entered. Even at this stage, the farm is benefiting the local environment. The clams will be here for 5 to 10 weeks before moving to the farm site.
We're in East Manatee County in Bradenton, Florida, and we are headed down to Bishop's Harbor, and that's in North Manatee County, and that's a state park that we use to launch our boat to get to our clam and oyster leases.
Shellfish production represents a large and growing part of the seafood industry here in the United States and globally. Shellfish industries are found on all coasts of the United States, and the shellfish farming industry generates hundreds of millions of dollars of income.
Shellfish will take on the characteristics of the water body in which they're grown, just like wine will reflect the qualities of the soil that the vines were grown in. Our animals never get huge pulses of fresh water, so our animals will tend to be saltier and sharper. And I'm not saying our animals are better, they're just different.
Water's gonna be clear. We can go check on the algae before we pull if we want, and then we'll get right to it. We've got bags tied up, so we'll just bring that buoy up alongside, start pulling.
The team did some prep work the day before the harvest, so today they just have to haul in the bags. Even though the harvest grounds are pretty shallow, Mark got in full scuba gear to attach the bags to the line. The clams need to be checked weekly, regardless of weather, and today we got lucky with calm seas and blue skies. Florida's environmental conditions are generally ideal for growing clams. Farmers are able to plant and harvest all year long. Florida is a major producer of clams in the United States. But the majority of Florida clams are grown a little further north in Cedar Key. In Tampa Bay, these native clams are at the southern end of their natural range. On their 7-acre lease, Two Docks is growing millions of clams. And each week they harvest 2,000 pounds. From the nursery on land, the clams are transferred to nursery bags and put in the bay, where they mature for about 3 months. Then, they're flipped into larger grow-out bags.
Once you've got them flipped into those grow-out bags, that's when you walk away for a year. From the time you flip them, we've got 10 to 15 months to get you a little neck, middle neck clam. That 10 to 15 months depends on when they were planted, how great the seed was, what the conditions are that year. Shellfish production in general, of which clam is a part, is in a lot of ways a perfect protein source. A lot of the other animals we eat are eating pretty high up in the food chain, like salmon and tuna fish they're tigers. They're high up in the trophic chain, and I eat salmon and tuna. I love it. I think they can be done sustainably. I know they can be done sustainably. But there's a lot fewer challenges in growing a shellfish in a sustainable way. I mean, we have a naturally filter feeding animal that's low in the food chain, that's way down on that trophic pyramid. On top of all that, on top of all the great environmental things about it, it's delicious. You can cook it a gazillion different ways. It's super healthy. There's all kinds of nutrients and minerals in that organism. There's great omega-3s. And the great thing about shellfish is they can be produced on a relatively small scale at profit. We started this as a hobby with, $1,000 in a checking account. I was finishing my PhD and I was working as a consultant a fair amount on finfish farms. And I just started doing it as a hobby. It was easy to get leases back then. My dad and I were doing it. We did it for a couple years just to, we were drinking beer and fishing. We thought we'd drink beer and grow some clams.
We started down in Charlotte Harbor and we planted 65,000 seeds. And we thought, my God, how can anybody eat that many clams? My son is the third, so around our business, I call myself Aaron the Older.
It's been awesome to work with my dad. It's also great that I only had to live 44 years to get him to listen to me.
From a very early age, I knew my son was very smart. Scatterbrained sometimes, but smart. He and I are equal 50-50 partners, but he's the boss. And he's the one that knows aquaculture, and my main job around here is to fix things.
From the minute we harvest an animal and put it on deck, our crews are on the clock. They've got to get those animals into a certified cold facility within a certain amount of time.
At the processing facility, the freshly harvested clams go into the tumbler, where the dead or broken clams and any critters are removed. Each step of the process requires attention to detail, including listening to how the clams sound.
That was totally different sound. You can hear them coming out, and you can hear them in there too. So you're looking for the ones that have mud in them. You're looking for the ones that are hollow.
The tumbled clams go inside to a refrigerated room where they're sorted in the size grader. Clams are differentiated in the market by their size. The smaller clams are little necks, medium clams are middle necks, and the largest clams are top necks. Then they're bagged and tagged.
I'm just sealing them up here. Last step in the processing process. These middle neck 100 counts are going for about $18.50 for 100 middle necks right now.
One of the things we love about the shellfish business is there's a market for the animal at almost every stage of its development. You can sell animals all the way from a larvae up to a top neck clam. One of the downsides of commercial aquaculture, if you're only in the grow-out business, is you're married to that grow-out period, and all sorts of terrible things can happen while your animals are in the ocean. I mean, we love the ocean, we love Mother Nature, but she's not always your friend. The truth is there's a suite of environmental risks that attach to any large-scale farm, and if you put all your eggs in one basket, eventually you're gonna have a problem. Our biggest and most obvious problem has been red tide. We first started doing it down in Charlotte Harbor, and then we did a little bit in Pine Island Sound. Those bodies of water are no longer useful. They're shut down 6 months a year due to red tide blooms. We've had a relatively good run of it in Tampa Bay. We haven't had any serious problems with red tide for years. But because we just believe that it's a part of our reality for the foreseeable future, even here in Tampa Bay does get red tide on occasion. We've decided to expand into Cedar Key, which is farther to the north, and maybe down the road even other farming areas. But Cedar Key is relatively red tide proof. They've only had 3 serious red tides in the last 20, 25 years.
Sometimes with seafood, it can be really hard to find out exactly where it was caught or harvested, but not with shellfish. Before leaving the processing facility, each bag of clams is fitted with a tag displaying where it was harvested, when it was harvested, and by whom.
We have to make sure that we can track those animals from our cold facility back to the lease and to the individual human being who harvested the animal. And then the restaurants and retail markets that sell that product are required to maintain those tags. That way any consumer who has a problem can figure out exactly where that product came from.
Two Dock Shellfish LLC would like to get bigger. We'd like not to be a mom and pop. So that means probably going away from just selling direct to restaurants and finding wholesalers. See, we wouldn't be selling by the 100-count bag, we'd be selling by the 500-count bag or even by the bushel. We'd love to get big enough that somebody brings their truck to us and we load their truck. But we still have favorite customers that we would still, we're going to one of the Childs Group restaurants, and Ed Childs was really good to us starting out, and I'll always load up a truck on Friday morning and take Ed Childs' clams.
A short drive from the processing facility is Mar Vista Dockside Restaurant, one of the 3 restaurants owned and operated by the Childs Group. They focus on sourcing local organic produce and seafood from fishers and farmers in the community.
Being along the water, people who are locals or are traveling from outside the state, they want Florida seafood, point blank. And clams is great. It's a versatile food. It can withstand long cooking times. Very nutritious, and if it's cooked right, it's delicious.
I like them anyway. I like them raw, when they're really fresh. I love them raw. Just put them on the grill. And as soon as they pop open just a little bit, they're done. You just eat the meat and the juice, and it's like taking a bite of the sea. They're delicious.
We try to support local and sustainability. Anything that's in season, we'll source through a farmer or through a fisherman, bring that in and create a dish on our menu just for that. One of the dishes that we'll be featuring for tonight is our local clams, and we'll make it carbonara style. So it will be local eggs, some fresh grated cheese, and with the clams we'll steam them, and so we get some of that liqueur, and then we'll use that juice within the dish and help to make a sauce with it.
There's no doubt that shellfish can be an acquired taste, but it's a taste that humanity's acquired and has had for millennia. Shellfish are a traditional part of American cuisine, and that goes all the way back to Native Americans. Clams were currency for Native American people in the Middle Atlantic states. We even have slang, clams is slang for money. They're a part of our culture. They're not going anywhere. We want people to eat more of them, and we think everybody should because they're awesome.
If you're a seafood eater, try exploring new ways to add clams, oysters, and mussels to your diet. Always seek out local shellfish when you can. Support restaurants that source local seafood.